This is the Stuff Report, a weekly look at hoarding in the headlines. Here's what's happening.
This week, a new study out of Australia asked a question that is easy to overlook. When hoarding takes over a home, what happens to the people who love the person living in it?
Not the neighbors, not the landlord, not the people called in during a crisis. The adult child who stopped bringing their own kids over. The partner who sleeps around the clutter. The sibling who has become the emergency contact, the storage unit, and the keeper of every difficult conversation.
The researchers spoke with 34 family members of people affected by hoarding. 20 took part in interviews, and 14 joined focus groups. They found 3 big themes: what the experience does to a person's sense of self, what it does to relationships, and how often family members are left without the information or support they need.
That last part matters. Family members are often told to be patient, be compassionate, do not force a clean-out. And all of that can be good guidance. But it does not mean the family member is not carrying something real.
The study describes people dealing with chronic worry, conflict, embarrassment, and isolation. It is not hard to understand why. When a home becomes difficult to enter, difficult to use, or difficult to talk about, the relationship can start orbiting the hoard.
And that is where our language matters. Supporters should not become the villain because they are tired. They may be afraid. They may be grieving the relationship they used to have. They may be trying to protect children, manage their own home, or simply figure out what is safe.
The research does not say family members have one single experience, but it does make the point that they are often the forgotten client. They need information. They need room to tell the truth. And sometimes they need help setting a boundary that is not an ultimatum.
People first has to mean all the people. It means the person who is overwhelmed by possessions. And it means the daughter who is overwhelmed by being the only one who knows what is going on.
That does not make this a sides-taking issue. It makes it a wider human issue. The goal is not to turn family against the person. The goal is to stop pretending that love is supposed to absorb unlimited risk without support. Our second story comes from Warwickshire in England, where the County Council recently shared 2 examples of what it calls person-centered support for hoarding and self-neglect.
What makes the story worth covering is not the before and after pictures. It is the timeline.
One resident, identified only as Harry with his consent, entered a self-neglect support pathway after a neighbor raised concerns. A joint visit with fire and environmental services found severe clutter, pest problems, and a home that needed professional help.
The council says the work took more than 2 years. It involved a clearance and repairs, yes, but also a social worker and an environmental health officer supporting Harry through the process. 3 years later, the council reports that he is living in a safer home, free from the risks that affected him and his neighbors.
Another resident, Alice, was sleeping in a chair and could no longer use key parts of her home. Her support plan included help with personal care, a bathroom installation, decluttering, and financial management. The council says she is now living independently with ongoing support.
There are a few things to notice here. First, the people were not reduced to a cleanup. Second, the intervention did not end when a room was cleared. And third, the system brought different kinds of support together: fire safety, practical home changes, emotional support, and time.
The story is careful about something that is easy to forget. Hoarding and self-neglect are not solved overnight. The council describes trust, sustained engagement, and working at the person's pace.
That does not mean safety gets ignored. In both stories, safety was very real. But a safety response can still be respectful. It can include the person in the plan. It can keep asking, what will help this change hold after the workers leave?
That is the part many systems struggle with. A fast clearance may make a property look different. Ongoing support is what gives a person a chance to live differently.
And when a community has a fire service, social support, housing, and practical help working together, it is more likely to reach people before a crisis turns into eviction, hospitalization, or a story somebody else tells about them.
Finally this week, a study published in May looked at something happening quietly every day. People affected by hoarding looking for help online.
The researchers reviewed 100 discussion threads and nearly 1,300 messages from a hoarding-focused online forum. They were not looking for a miracle cure. They were looking at what people actually say to each other when they are trying to get unstuck.
They found 3 broad patterns. People offered emotional and practical support. People asked how to help someone else. And people wrestled with the hardest question in the room. What do you do with the things when it is time to let some of them go?
That last piece is more complicated than it sounds. People were not only talking about getting rid of something, they were talking about waste, donations, recycling, responsibility, and the fear of doing the wrong thing with an item.
In other words, the obstacle is not always a lack of desire to change. Sometimes it is the weight of every decision. Where should this go? Could someone use it? Is it wasteful to throw it away? What if I regret it?
The forum also gave people a place to share progress without having to wait for an appointment or explain their home face-to-face. That kind of privacy and control can matter when shame has made it hard to ask for help anywhere else.
But the study also points to the limits. Online advice can be uneven. People do not always know what support exists in someone else's town or country. And a comment section cannot replace emergency help, medical care, or a local safety response when those are needed.
Still, the takeaway is hopeful. Connection does not have to begin with a grand reveal. Sometimes it begins with someone saying, "I opened one bag today," or "I do not know how to talk to my dad," or "I am scared to throw this away because it feels like I am throwing away part of myself."
And another person answering, "I understand. Here is what helped me. You are not the only one carrying this."
That is not a complete plan, but it can be the beginning of one.
This week, the stories all point in the same direction. Families need support. Communities need to stay past the first cleanup. And people need places where they can tell the truth before the situation gets louder than they are.
That is the Stuff Report for this week.
That's the Stuff Report for this week. We'll see you next time.